night runner mentality.
Even Kisia sometimes.
Night runner mentality. You saw what this CS Machogu did.
Oh.
The CS Machogu.
Oh, come on.
Listen, a man delivers a message at 1 a.m. in the morning, but not to plan. You cannot start planning when something is happening. That is Juakali style of management. Just like we're in our homes, we were in darkness for several hours. In fact, Kenya Power and Lighting, they should change from Kenya Power and Lighting to Kenya Power and Darkness. What gives him the idea that he can do as he wishes? This is not his personal house, this is not so going. I think the president needs to stop being simplistic.
Is there a vacuum post Raila?
Play one clip where Ruto has spoken truthfully.
A very good day to you and welcome to Philip Kisia Unscripted. My name is Jadiel Kabiro. It's always my pleasure to have you joining us for conversations we say we hope will help our political leaders in making better policy decisions and informed political moves. The government has announced that now the death tally of those who have passed due to these heavy rains is at 179. 90 people have been reported missing and 195,000 people have also been displaced so far. My conversation today with Philip Kisia is about that. How do you govern amidst a disaster? Are we facing a national disaster? And could these deaths, 179 people who have passed on, could these deaths be avoided? Philip, thanks for making time for me. How are you doing this Friday?
Well, ready to close the week, as you can see.
Very, very ready.
Yes.
Where do you get these shirts? People ask me, Kisia, sasa si atupe akwe plug wa shati. Where do you get them? You should start an online shop.
Probably my wife should. This week I decided to wear the outfits she got me from Senegal.
Oh.
Yeah, so yeah. So this week I'm in Senegal.
So we're waiting for that shop from your wife.
Yeah.
But it's a sad conversation we're going to have. But before we talk about this disaster that we're facing as a country, what are some of the highlights that you've seen this week? You
know, first of all, Jed, it's a very sad moment in the history of our nation that we've lost. I think now it's close to 200 people. I think it was 180, close to 200 people. You know, even losing one life is a serious matter. Where people are civilized, where governments are civilized, where governments have leaders who are empathetic to people, who feel people, who don't have stone hearts, you know, where people in leadership are human beings, you would see how they would connect with the people. But here, people are dying, and if you see the activities that the government and those at the top are engaging in, like riding new motor vehicles, and people are dying from floods, so you are partying and enjoying, and guys are dying. So let me first of all condole with the families that have lost their dear ones. Some of them are very young. This should not have happened. It's tragic. It's actually a national disaster. And why am I saying that the leadership is made of stone? Because by now, they should have admitted that this is a national crisis. They should have admitted by now. They should have said, know what? It's a state of emergency. That we need help from those of you who are within, and even from our partners and our neighbors. So, condolences. And even those who have lost their properties, running into billions of shillings. I don't know how even they'll get out of the wounds. You can imagine if you have your investment in a house and it is swept by the floods. You can imagine what happens. But, you know, when I was thinking about how to engage you this week, then I remembered my good friend's video, Mudavadi. When he was campaigning to be president, he actually talked about governance and good leadership. He spoke so well. And I'm not saying this because he's my village mate and my good friend. I am saying because he spoke well. He spoke about mediocrity, those people who are proposing to come into office, that, you know, that they didn't have sound policies. In fact, he made reference to KRA harassing Kenyans in morning, evening. Mama Mboga cannot breathe. Borders cannot breathe. He talked about this bottom-up economic model that was not making sense. Then he talked about something that was very profound. He talked about this economy can be fixed if you give me an opportunity, because we need sound leadership, we need management of our resources, we need to stop corruption. Now, the question is, now that he's part of that government, and he's my friend, Musalia, now that he's part of that government, has anything changed? And can he, now that he's part of that government, can he talk about the same things? Fixing the economy, removing pain from people through, high taxation, stopping corruption. Let's listen to that video.
Lipa. Kwani wewe ni mwajiri wa KRA? Ama wewe umeajiriwa kufanya biashara yako? Ama kwa kampuni fulani? Asubuhi mtu wa KRA anatokea kwa mlango wa mbele. Ikifika saa 10 mtu wa KRA anatokea kwa mlango wa nyuma. Haupumui bwana. Na wengine wanatoka huko wanasema economy ya bottoms up. Hii Kiingereza kingi. You're confusing us. Mismanagement of resources. That is what is happening.
I think the question is, why is he not speaking in the same tune? Why do you think people change when they get to power?
I did not say he's not speaking the same tune, Jed. You are putting words in my mouth. I said that he spoke well that time, but now that he's part of them, the bottom up, he's part of that bottom up thing.
Yes.
Now, can my friend Musalia talk the way he was talking? Because he made sense. Maybe pull the boss behind the tent and say, boss, the taxations are hurting Kenyans. They are very high. They are unbearable. Can he say, Mr. President, if I was the one who to have ascended into office, this is the way I would have stopped corruption. The 3 billion we are losing per day, 3 billion shillings, I would have done ABCD to stop that money from, stop people from stealing public resources. Because 3 billion, Jed, do you know we don't even need to borrow money to pay our workers better, doctors and so on and so forth, to pay our loans, because they're talking about almost 1 trillion shillings. If you can just stop this corruption, 1 trillion. 1 trillion, you take 500 billion, put it in infrastructure. Okay? You take another 200 billion, 300 billion pay loans. You take another 100 billion, pay add money to the workers so that they can be more productive and be more incentivized. So my point is, he's part of the system now. Can he just please have some time with the president? I'm not saying they don't have time, but please, we are not seeing that. We are not feeling it.
We're not feeling it.
No, we're not.
Maybe I'm right, he has changed tune, but you haven't said that. Let's talk about the 179 people. It's very sad, Kisia. 195,000 families, 195,000 people have been displaced. 179 people have died. The government spokesman Isaac Mwaura comes and says, prepare for heavier rains, he tells Kenyans. You have classified this as a national disaster. What implication does your designation mean when it comes now to dealing with this, what you call a disaster? You
see, the consequences are there. We've already seen, when you talk about losing 200 lives and property running into billions of shillings, this is not a joke. It's a disaster. It's actually an emergency. It's a disaster. It's a national disaster. So I don't know what more you want me to add. But, again, this thing reminded me of what Badi talked about when President Ruto presented his nominees. 22 of them proposed to be cabinet secretaries. I want you to look for that video. But before you even play that video, what actually Badi said that time, it was like a prophecy. He had foreseen And I think most people had already foreseen. But Badi had the opportunity to speak about it in Parliament.
This is a cabinet that lacks competence, integrity in many aspects. So what was informing the appointment of these members to the cabinet? If you can have Aisha Juma tasked with the responsibility of reforming our civil service, which has challenges, I fear that is not something that is going to work. This is a cabinet that was informed by political expediency. The president has actually appointed 2027 campaign managers, regional campaign managers. The threshold, Mr. Speaker, the threshold under Chapter 6 is higher than cases being in court and such like, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the threshold for approval in this House, we are not a court of law. In this House, we are approving you based on your capacity to hold office. We have a choice to make either decision to reject over 60% of these names or give President Ruto his skunk. Let us not interfere with it. We give it to him. He has asked for it. Let us give him his cabinet. We know he's going to run the government from State House. These are not people who can run a government.
He talked about you have presented a group of inexperienced, incompetent, poor education, most of them, lacking in integrity, and even said that this team that you are giving us is a team that cannot inspire. They have no capacity to deliver. They have no capacity to transform the economy and to transform the people of this nation, great nation. In fact, I would have added, for me, I would have added and said that we were presented with a clueless cabinet, and a cabinet that has some elements of, night runner mentality. Night runner mentality.
Where do you get that?
Night runner mentality.
You know, Kisia sometimes.
Night runner mentality. You saw what this CS Machogu did.
Oh.
The CS Machogu.
Oh, come on.
Listen, a man delivers a message at 1 a.m. in the morning that please don't go to school, and children have traveled hundreds of kilometers from wherever, the kids are already going to school. Some already, a few, just within the vicinity of the school.
Yes.
And he's saying now we have made a decision that, the schools cannot reopen. Yet you had that information. You had been advertised. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. This cabinet has some element of
at 1 a.m.
Night runner mentality.
But then I want you to
clueless.
We've listened.
Clueless mentality.
We've listened to Badi, but I want you to tell me about how government can improve their response. I think it's comedian Eric Omondi comes and says, "Cabinet meetings for what? While people are dying. What are you meeting to discuss? We need prompt action." How can government coordinate themselves properly instead of us seeing meetings from meetings after meetings while Kenyans are getting displaced?
Meetings are good. I will not say that we should not have meetings. But when you look at this disaster, you had been forewarned by experts. And this is a government that does not use experts. They are using Juakali type of management. When you listen to experts, and an expert in meteorology has told you clearly that we are likely to have a disaster, or the rainfalls will be more than normal. Okay? And therefore, we propose that you start preparing ourselves in terms of resourcing. So you should have started planning. Immediately, you got that warning. So the meetings that should have been held at that time, to lay down a very, very solid plan on how to mitigate against this disaster. To approve budgets, to allocate resources, necessary resources to deal with the disaster. The meetings they're holding now should have been review meetings, just to review progress. How are we doing? What can we do? What else can we do? But not to plan. You cannot start planning when something is happening. That is Juakali style of management. That's no plan. That's no strategy. Strategy means that, you prepare well in advance. and you are ready for execution. You're just waiting for the moment you press a button and you execute. We are at the tail end. We should be doing M&E, monitoring and evaluating, but not planning. This is a government that's planning or reacting to a situation when it's happening. It is actually what we had foreseen. People of us who believe in sound management practices, we had foreseen that when you have a group of incompetent and qualified people, they are unable to think, no forward thinking, and then when you have a leadership that believes that everything must be done around them, is a one-man show, and that's why probably CS Machogu released a statement at 1 a.m. like a night runner, you know, telling us students don't go to school. At 1 a.m. Kids are already in school. I mean, what level of stupidity is this one? I mean, surely, what level of stupidity, for heaven's sake?
I want you to talk to me. We don't want to talk about night runners,
but who? I mean, Jed. Who operates at night in your culture, where you come from? It's only night runners.
Now we're looking at what is happening also at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. It's leaking. And then, making things worse, there was total blackout at JKIA. How can government now, because we've talked about strategizing, planning pre-disaster, how can government now work, now that the disaster has happened, to ensure that there's smooth transportation and essential services are also running, because JKIA was a total shame?
You know, Nani Jed, it's shameful. It's actually shameful. Because what we're experiencing is not even a disaster. It's beyond a disaster. But people have been in office for close to 2 years, and they appear to have no plan on how government is run. Because if you look at what is happening at JKIA, an international airport that is ISO certified. In fact, the certification body should remove. They should be dropped. Because when you're ISO certified, it means that everything is in the public domain. How you respond to a disaster, the time that you are supposed to respond, given different emergencies, are all laid down on a plan. People are trained in advance. But here, we claim to be certified, ISO certified, and we have leaking roofs at the airport. Roofs are leaking. Basic maintenance. That's basic maintenance. It means that there's no level of maintenance in our airport. Then you wonder where are the resources that are budgeted for repair and maintenance annually. If you're ISO certified, it means that those in charge must be going through the steps that are required in advance, that we have, because the airports work very closely with the Met department. We've been warned this is likely to happen. Weather conditions are not a view. This will be in excess. And therefore, when you're planning, you also plan in advance to confront such a crisis. But it appears as if the team at JKIA, either they have not been given space to work, or they're just completely incompetent fellows. A group of incompetent characters who are running the airport.
So you listen to...
So it's a serious matter. There are two things. Either they are not being given breathing space to work, and they're earning a salary, or they are, we have the wrong people.
And that is why I want to go with the next question, because CS Murkomen comes on television, says people whose houses have been flooded, they need to move to higher places so that to avoid flooding even more. He also talks about budgetary restrictions, or he says they do not have sufficient funds, to help with the problem with JKIA. Says we need to live within our means. Do you think these are solutions? Does his speech actually address the problem that we're having?
Cogitate reasoning. Backward reasoning that doesn't address the issues at hand. Okay? Is he trying to suggest that these things just happened? Is it trying to suggest that? Has this country received El Nino rains before? Yes. Have we seen the disaster that is happening now? No. So there must be a problem somewhere. And other than trying to pass the blame, we must be taking responsibility. In fact, going forward in those press conferences, instead of having a CS who, and I respect CS Moroccoman, I respect him, but instead of just him coming there to floss with designer shoes and watches, okay, I would expect on his side, they are engineers. And I'm sure JKI has very qualified engineers to talk about those issues. Water engineers to talk about what is happening. Structural engineers to talk about, let them answer the questions. You as a minister, you deal with policy matters. You cannot purport to deal with technical issues when you lack capacity. So they seem to be, someone wants to take glory, someone wants to appear as if he's working, but that is working against you because you look like an idiot. Because we say that, there will be no blackout. Now that one has been resolved, has been dealt with. 3 minutes later, there's a blackout.
Yeah.
3 minutes later. You start asking yourself, forget about even long-term planning in terms of, greening our airport, green energy. Where is a standby generator or standby generators? It is an international airport, for heaven's sake. International. Where the change over time should be less than 1 minute, change over time. From the main line to the genset. Should be less than a minute, 30 seconds maybe, 45 seconds. Here, you have an airport that is in darkness for several hours. Just like we're in our homes, we're in darkness for several hours. In fact, Kenya Power and Lighting, they should change from Kenya Power and Lighting to Kenya Power and Darkness. Because they're providing the darkness. So they're not providing light.
I've been asking this question. I haven't found the right answer. What do you do if you're not getting goodwill from the president? Because this is what all CSs are complaining about, living within our means. What if the president has just told them, this is what I'm giving you, you fix your problem? How do you deal with that as a CS?
You see, it is not lack of resources. What they are trying to run away, they are saying that lack of resources. Number one, resources, we should not limit resources just to money. I know money is a big factor. Okay? But there are many other questions that we must be asking ourselves. Manpower. Do you have the right manpower doing the right job? Are they have they been properly placed? Are we managing our time, minutes? Are we managing our time properly? That when those guys are there, they're actually doing what they're supposed to do and reporting back to their appointing authorities. Basic management of our machinery, which is another resource. How frequently are they serviced? Do we procure the right equipment in the first place? Or we procure cheap because most of that money is eaten through corruption? So we end up having poor quality machinery. Okay? So there is a lot. And then the issue just of overall management. Is this department speaking to this one? Meteorological department, are they speaking with airport authority? Is airport authority seeking information from the Met department and so on and so forth?
Okay.
So the president or these people cannot hide behind one envelope or one resource called money. We must ask questions about the other resources that are supposed to be deployed to carry out that function. Okay? But even coming back to money, we have said it and we'll say it again. And when I asked you to play Musalia's video, you're asking me why. You now see the relevance.
Yes.
He talked about poor management of our resources. The question that we are asking ourselves, how well are we managing those resources to deliver the outcomes that are desired?
Okay.
Okay? So it's not a question of just money all the time. Money. There are many other factors that we should be looking at when we fail. But even if it was money, money can be found by this government if they stop wastage. We've said it before and we continue saying There is a lot of wastage in this government. And the corruption is humongous. They have admitted, in their own admission, that we lose 3 billion every day. So in a year, it's about 1 trillion shillings. If that money, and if President Ruto meant business, that he was serious about fighting corruption, we would see that money actually being retained by government and not lost through corruption, and dealing with these other things that we are talking about. But even finally on that matter, Jed,
Yes.
you know, airports is heavy capital outlay. It's a lot of capital outlay. And probably this is a time that even the government, and I'm happy to talk about building a second airport, okay? Because what this even successive government should have done, they would have start thinking the way other people think, other countries think. If you look at a place like America, they have this Hatchfield-Jackson airport, okay? That is in Atlanta, not too far from the other airport. That airport alone can serve 100 million passengers. 100 million. Forget about ours, I don't need to talk about how many million people. We should be talking about a metropolis. And if Nairobi can have another airport, fine. But we can have another airport in Machakos, where we have sufficient land. And maybe the altitudes are good for takeoff and landing. The point being that we must think about some of these infrastructures beyond Nairobi.
Okay.
We should not just be looking at Nairobi and saying, okay, fine. The city needs to grow beyond Nairobi in terms of other infrastructures like airports and bypasses and other services that are required.
Okay.
All right? Okay. So I think we need a cabinet that can do better than this one is doing. Not this night runner mentality approach to management.
So we got to talk about what solutions. We can't just complain and not give solutions. What measures do you think should be put into place, and who should bear responsibility? If you look at these people that have died, and climate change is affecting every part of the globe, so things can even become worse than they are right now. Who should bear responsibility, one, and what measures can be put in place?
Jed, you have the answer. You're asking me who should bear responsibility. You just want me to say, so that it is not you.
Yeah, so that we don't.
So that it is not you.
Let's not say it's the CS or.
You are now saying that it is not me.
Yeah.
Me, I'll say it because I have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Okay. The person who bears ultimate responsibility is the CEO of the institution. In this case, the CEO of the company called Kenya is His Excellency William Samoei Arap Ruto. He bears the ultimate responsibility because he's the appointing authority. He can make the changes that he wants. He's the one who approves the plans. He's the one who gets reports and evaluates, monitors and evaluates and decides what course of action to take. So if he, by commission or omission, he appointed fellows that are incompetent, and he has realized time for him to take action is now. But you asked me about solutions.
But before you give me solutions, I want to hold you a little bit on that, because you listen to someone like Senator Ledama and Senator Cherargei talking about Nairobi. They were telling us, let's not blame Nairobi CEO Johnson Sakaja, because this has been a perennial problem. Can we also say the same about President William Ruto? This has been a perennial problem. We should look at how the planning of this country has been from our predecessors, because we haven't had this conversation before.
No, listen. You see, I think, our companies are going concern. You find it moving. And this idea of having the rear view approach, the mentality to issues should stop. Okay? Keep on looking behind. Look forward. If we are to transform this country. Those who are there before us did some work. And that's why I keep on saying, Jed, let us stop this zero approach mentality to management. You want to start from zero. Kibaki was there. He did whatever he did. He laid a very strong foundation. I mean, those who were there before him, they did some work. Uhuru came and did infrastructure. You are now on the steering. Give us solutions. Don't tell us that, this is an old problem. No, we don't want to hear about old problems. We want to know what you are doing about the problem, the challenge that we're facing now that you're in the office. In any event, when you are asking for people to give you that opportunity to provide leadership, you already must have studied the problem. You already must have had the solution. So you are getting into the office not to lament, but to take action. Okay? So I would have expected President Ruto, because he's been in government for long. He served in Moi's government. He served in Kibaki's government. He served in Uhuru's government. Now he's on top. He should have the solutions at his fingertips. He should not be looking at the rear view mirror and saying, it was. He has been there for 2 years. He has been there before.
So what should we implement now?
You see, you asked me for solutions, Jed. I think I'd given you a few of them. I say, number one, integrated planning. And integrated planning. We must now just look at Nairobi. We must look at the metropolis when you're planning. So the plans for Machakos County, the plans for Kiambu County, the plans for Narok and other counties surrounding Nairobi must speak to Nairobi. They must speak to each other. Because one of the ways of decongesting Nairobi and making sure that you grow outward. Sakaja believes that you can grow up, which is okay, but you can also grow outward. Okay? Especially when there are these heavy infrastructure projects like airports. You can't just have all of them in Nairobi. You need to have one in Machakos, for example. You need to have one in Kajiado. Maybe Kajiado. You need to have. So we're saying that we need to change our approach in terms of just even planning. The other thing that, and I've said it before, that when you have the plans that have been agreed, because you talked about there's a perennial problem, that these things were there before. When I was there as the CEO of the city, and I was there for 36 months, what did I do? You can ask me that question. I can tell you I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in terms of institutional reforms, preparing this city for takeoff. That's why we spent the time that we had, other doing the hard things that people want to see, the soft things that they can reform a country and prepare it for takeoff. The master plan, how come it has not been implemented? How come? By successive regimes. We had first cycle of devolution, second, this is a third cycle of devolution. And you still talk about old problems. I think we need to be a bit more serious as Kenyans, so that when you are evaluating somebody, you must evaluate him based on the challenges that your constituency or ward or county or nation is facing, and arrive at the decision whether that person really fits, whether that person has what it takes to transform the country or the county. Or the county. Okay? Don't just elect people because they've talked about bottom up, whatever it is, trickle down and what have you, things that you don't even understand. Just as from an individual basis, you need to understand what are the challenges going on in our environment and who is best suited to do. The other thing that I also don't want to blame the government, I think even at individual level in terms of disaster, we have responsibility. But even as we blame our people, sometimes somebody would ask, why would somebody take a risk and cross a river that is completely, unsafe? People are so desperate. People are so desperate. They want to cross over so that probably are going to look for something from the other side. People want to cross maybe because this side, they don't have accommodation. So it is out of desperation. People are doing these things. People are not stupid. But they are doing things out of desperation. But even as we are so desperate as Kenyans, we also need to take responsibility. And also take action that can protect ourselves. There are things that we can do at individual level to make sure that we can mitigate some of these disasters that we are facing. Okay?
All right.
So I will not blame government 100%. I'll blame the 99%. But as citizens, we have 1%.
Thanks for tuning into that conversation. How do we govern amidst a disaster? Is this government competent enough to keep Kenyans safe? Final word, Kisia, as we're heading over for the weekend.
Let me say this, Jed, that we cannot pray our way into a solution. We cannot. It doesn't matter how many prayer warriors we deploy in State House. We cannot pray our way into a solution. Remember, God has already given you all the necessary resources. He's given you the brain. He has given you minutes in time. He has given you good health. He has given you everything. Okay? So why can't you use the resources that God has given you to make things better for yourself and to make things better for your country? But if President Ruto is listening, it doesn't matter how many, I'm told there are 100 prayer warriors in State House.
Really?
I'm told there are 100 of them who pray, and intercede and so on and so forth. And I'm also very prayerful. But that alone cannot help. We cannot pray our way into a solution.
That is the closing remark from Philip Kisia, leadership and governance expert, former Nairobi town clerk. We cannot pray ourselves into a solution. Says also we need to take responsibility. Don't cross a river that is overwhelmed. You might lose your life. Have yourself a lovely rest of your day. Have a good weekend.
What gives him the idea that he can do as he wishes? This is not his personal house. This is not so going. I think the president needs to stop being simplistic.
Is there a vacuum post Raila?
Play one clip where Ruto has spoken truthfully.